Okay, so I kind of want to go over the strategies that we had talked about yesterday. The first one is that things are drawn to scale, contrary to what ACT says. So we can always use that to our advantage. We'll see that today. Um, we also talked about glancing at the answers so we know what kind of formats that's going on and eliminate the choices that are not correct. That'll help you avoid selecting the halfway answer that's wrong, right? Today, I want to talk a little bit about a method called guessing and checking. So I would like you to go to page 26 in your booklet. We're going to look at number 51, okay? So number 26 in the booklet, number 51. Oops. Sorry about this, hold on. You may not remember your exponent rules for this. So I'm going to do it like the math class way, and then I'll show you the fast way that we would like for you to do based on ACT stuff. So this is question 51. It's on page 26 of your booklet. The math class way of doing it is to change some things, like the top becomes 3 to the x plus 4, right? Because isn't it when you multiply, you add the exponents, right? And then the denominator, when you've got a power to a power, I think you're supposed to multiply those, right? And then 9, that's really the same thing as 3 to the second power. So right off the bat, we see like the math class way of doing this question, it's already doing a lot of exponent rules. And then you also got to remember that when you divide exponents, it really means that you got to subtract them, right? So it'd be 3x plus 4 minus 20, right? Because remember, it's the top power minus the bottom power. And then we're going to bring this 3 up to the top, so it becomes a -2. So now we've done 4 exponent rules in one question. And then you just got to think about, well, how the heck could I get these exponents to be the same? And you're like, well, that means when does x plus 4 minus 20 equal a -2?
I have a question.
Yes.
What page, like, what packet is it in? Because I like that
Okay.
my
So
page
it
26.
should be number 26, page 26 at the bottom. It should be the same packet Mr. Williams is using. On the front of the packet, it should say ACT June 2015, right? This is the one he used. And I'm kind of, and today we're using, today we're using the June 2016 test, right? We're doing that second section of it. So is that helpful? Is that
Yeah, I got it now. Thank you.
okay? You're welcome. Um, so then we get it down to a question like this. And we're like, okay, so now we got to solve this thing, right? So now we're solving equations here, which really, if I combine those, that'd be x minus 16 is equal to -2. And if I add 16 to both sides, we get x equals 14. And wow, there's the answer. That's a lot of work. But there's this technique called guessing and checking. And it's so much faster than doing it the other way. So we're going to guess some numbers. I'm going to guess. So the answer was letter D, right? I'm going to guess letter C because these numbers are in order. And I'm going to see if 11 would work out for us. Now, if x is 11, that would be 11 plus 4 is 15, right? Over 3 to the 20. And if I don't even remember like my exponent rule, like, gosh, how do I do that, right? You know, your calculator you can use in all your questions, right? So in fact, you know what I might do? I might not even go that far on it. What I might do is I might take my calculator here. And did you guys know that if you press the alpha button and then the y equals on the top, we get this hidden menu that lets us make a fraction? I don't know if you knew that or not. We could type in that problem and put in the 11 for the x to see if that might be it. So I could think of 3 to the 11th power times 3 to the 4th power, right? Over 3 to the 4th power, all raised to the 5th power. I could just type the problem in. Like, I think maybe x is an 11. I press enter, and I get like 1 over 243. Not even close to the answer we're looking for 14. Well, let's just go down the list. 11 didn't work, so let's try 14. The cool thing on the calculator is you've got these arrows to choose, right? If I press the up arrow until I get on top of what I typed in before, and I press the enter key, it kind of copies it down. And then I can just use the arrows and, whoops, change that number to be what we should try. Let's try 14 instead. So I try 14. Oh my gosh, there it is. It's a lot faster, especially being able to arrow up, press enter to copy something down, right? So guessing and checking, while we really don't like in a math class, this is the ACT and it's multiple choice. So keep that in like your bag of tricks as you're going through stuff, okay? Because it will make your life a little bit easier. Okay, so if you could, I want to do a math lesson with you. So if you could get out the booklet that says math lessons. And open, we're going to do one lesson today. Open to the one that says descriptive statistics at the top. Okay, we're going to do 3 pages of this. Descriptive statistics are like mean, median, mode. And these are on the test, and they've been like lately a favorite of the ACT. Like they really like to ask questions that deal with these. So let's kind of talk about some words. Like the word mean, all that means is to, it's another word for average. In other words, add up all the terms and divide by the number of terms. So here's a question from the ACT, and I want you to read it. It's number 2 from the actual ACT test. Yeah, it wants to know the mean. I didn't like the way it was worded. Like it was really confusing sometimes. Like, man, how are you writing this stuff out? But the way to work it out is we're like, well, it says that there are 3 of whom are age 10. So I could think of 10 plus 10 plus 10. And then 2 of whom are age 5. So plus 5 plus 5. I divide all of those by the 5 total people we have, and we will wind up with 8. This is one way to think about how to compute the mean. We could also, instead of doing it like that, we could have said, well, there's 3 people that are age 10, and there's 2 people that are age 5. We got a total of 5 people there. Do the math, and we get 8. Okay. So what I remember, you could use your calculator on the test here, right? So I would like for everyone to take 30 seconds here and work out question number 7.
Could you maybe show that question 2 again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So one thing I did was I said, you know what? I could just type this into my calculator, right? I can add up all the numbers and divide by 5 because we got to do it anyway, right? You got to be careful on your calculator because a lot of times it's going to return a fraction answer for you. So a little quick tip for you. If we want to get a decimal answer, there's 2 ways to go about it. One way is to make sure there's a decimal in the problem. Like I'm dividing by 5. What if I divided by 5 decimal point? Well, that's really the same thing as a 5, right? I do that, I get my decimal with, okay, I think I got a typo here. 57, 61, 57, 57, 58, 57. Huh. Did you guys get the same thing?
It's
There's
because you're
6
dividing by
presidents.
5 and it's 6.
Oh my gosh, that's embarrassing. There's 6 numbers, aren't there? Okay. So we divide by 6, we get the right answer. Another way to go about that is if we don't want to put the decimal point in there, on the enter, well, you have to put the decimal point in. That's the quick way to go. Okay, so let's look at some of these. Two different types of means. They use like frequency tables a lot of times. So like here's number 37 from the test. And the question is, which of the following is closest, right? So you might get an answer that's not quite exactly what you're looking for. Closest to the mean of the 20 customer ratings. Well, if I look at this, there were 6 customers that rated as 3. So I'll do 6 times 3. There's 8 customers that gave it 2. And 2 customers that rated it as a 1. I'm not going to bother adding in the 4 times
Mr.
0.
Flynn,
Yeah,
can you go back to question 7, please? I just wanted to see the answer.
no worries. It should be letter C, 57.8. Because what you're doing is you're just adding them all up and dividing by 6, right? Because there's 6 items in that list, not 5. So on this one, when we do this, this will add up all the possible choices, right? We've got this many total. We're going to divide by the 20 customers we have, and using our calculators, we get 1.8, which we see. Turns out it is exactly 1.8. Kind of weird they show the word closest when there was really no need for that. Sometimes they'll use this when they want you to round an answer a bit. This test has this quite a bit on here. Let's look at 39. So a similar idea, but now they're using percentages instead of number of customers. No big deal though. We'll still do it the same way. We had 20%, so I'll do 20 times 5 plus 70 times 4 plus 10 times 3. Now that's a total of 100%, so I will divide all of those by 100. Using our calculator, we'll wind up with letter E. Okay, this is kind of keeping true with the word mean of what we're trying to do, trying to find the mean ratings, right? Okay, so now let's do some questions that I like to call a little meaner. Okay, these ones are, again, it's the mean, and you're like, well, the mean's not too hard. It's just finding the average of something. Well, sometimes they get a little devious. And these 4 questions, and they're early in the test, like number 35, 34, 27, and in this one, number 18, they're pretty early in the test. And we usually say the first 20 are not too bad, but sometimes there's a couple stinkers in there, and these are definitely stinkers. If you're reading along here, it says the average weight of 10 boys is 77 pounds. Now, if the youngest boy is excluded, the average weight of the 9 boys is 78 pounds. What is the weight of the youngest boy? So here's the way to kind of think about this. And I'm going to try to approach it using the mean idea. If we took the youngest plus the rest of the boys, right? And I divided by 10 because that's how many people we have. This is the mean, right? The youngest boy plus all the other boys. We know that the mean of that has to be 77 because we're told that's what it is. We're trying to figure out what the young person has to be. Well, if I knew how much the rest of the boys weighed, I think we could do this. So I'm going to think about it as if I took the rest of the boys and found their average, in other words, we divide by 9, right? Because we're not using the youngest person. We know that mean is 78. That's what they tell us right here. Well, that means that the rest of the boys together must weigh 702 pounds. Well, I can take that 702 pounds and use it for the rest of the boys. So now we've got the youngest plus the 702 divided by 10 is 77. So I'm kind of using these words instead of variables because I think words kind of help out a little bit. To solve this, we'll probably multiply both sides by 10. So we'll have the youngest plus 702 must be 770. Well, I think we can agree that we need 68, right? Because 68 plus 702 would be 770. That is a bit meaner. It's a two-step kind of process to figure it out. And that's what these ones are kind of doing here. So that's 35. And then 34, man, to increase the mean of 4 numbers by 3. So I want the mean to increase by 3. How much would the sum have to increase by? We could use a lot of heavy-duty algebra to figure this one out. But I think, you know, a nice strategy for us to try is just to pick some numbers. So I chose the numbers 3, 7, 6, and 4. I just kind of picked them out of the air, wrote down 4 numbers. I made sure they were all different. And I'm just going to go through what they say. To increase the mean of 4 numbers. Well, first off, let's find the mean. The mean would be 3 plus 7 plus 6 plus 4, all divided by 4. Well, that mean is 5, right? Well, I want the mean to increase by 3. So if I took what I was doing here, 3 plus 7 plus 6 plus 4 plus, I have no idea, but I want the mean to get 3 bigger. So I want it to be the number 8. And so what I did was I typed this part into my calculator and I started trying numbers. First, I tried this one, and this one was too small. So that way I knew that the other 2 were too small as well. Then I tried a 7 in here. 7 was too small. And then when I finally chose the right answer, which was the last one, 12, 12 worked out. And using that idea of pressing the up arrow and pressing enter to copy it down, it made it really quick to change an answer and try another number and try another number. But huge technique, makes it much easier to do this kind of question. It saves you on some calculations. Okay, these are a little meaner, you know. So let's look at 27. It says in a chemistry course, a student scored 99 on a test, 98 on another, and then here's the weird part, 88, so an 88 on each of the other tests. I have no idea how many tests this person took, but I know the scores were a 99, 98, and then everything else gets an 88. Well, it says the student's test average for the course were, yeah, right. The average was a 91. What is the total number of tests that the student's taken in this course? Well, let's go ahead and try to, we know that the mean is 91. So let's go ahead and calculate that. They scored a 99. They scored a 98. And then I'm not sure how many of the 88s they had, right? I'm not sure if they took if they had 3 of them, 4 of them, 5 of them, 6 of them. I'm not sure what. So I'm going to go ahead and try out the, I'm going to guess my middle value. I'm going to guess a 5, right? Now, remember, this 5 the question says, what is the total number of tests, right? So I'm going to guess 5 is the total number of tests. Well, 5 is the total number of tests. There must be 3 of those that were an 88. So I'm going to go ahead and try this one out by guessing and checking. So we have 99 plus 98 plus 3 times 88 all over 5. And this answer should be exactly 91. Let's see if it is. 99 plus 98 plus 3 times 88. Okay, I need to get a decimal on that. So let's put a decimal point in there. Oh man, so we get 92.2. 5 seems to be a little too small, right? I mean, a little too big. So let's go ahead and try out 4 instead. So I'm going to say that there were 4 total tests, which means that there could only have been 2 88s. Oh, we're going the wrong way. Okay, so let's go back and try out a 7 total tests instead. So that would mean that there would have been 5 of those, right? Ah, that's the answer. There were a total of 7 tests. Now, so that one didn't work out. So what we ended up using was 99 plus 98 plus there were 5 88 tests and a total of 7 exams. And that does give us 91. So the mistake is for this is for some people to select the 5, right? Because that's how many 88s. But the question says, what are the total number of tests? So you want to be careful on this one. You want to really be careful. Okay, so 7, and then there was 5. Okay, let's look at the last one here on this. And it is this one. The mean of 7 numbers is 85. Okay. The first 6 numbers are this. So I'm going to add those up. 82 plus 93, 68, 93, 70, 98. I have no idea what the 7th number is. But when I take their mean, right, when I divide by 7, I get exactly 85. So I'm going to guess 90 on this. So I'll use my calculator and I'm just going to type in exactly what we have here. So I'm going to guess a 90 and I got to divide by 7. Now I'm going to put a decimal point there to make sure I get a decimal answer here. And we get 84. I'm trying to get a higher average. So I know that 90 is not big enough. 90 was too small. So that allows me to eliminate everything above it because those numbers are smaller than 90. So I'm going to try 91 instead. And again, here's where the beauty of it is. Press the up arrow, press enter to copy down. We're going to change that 90 to a 91. Hey, there's our answer, 85. Great. Okay, now that some of these statistics questions get a little bit more interesting with the median now, right? Now, median, just remember, you have to put the numbers in order, right? So smallest to largest or largest to smallest, and you have to find the middle term, just like you're driving down the road and you want to find the median, right? Median's in the middle of the road. So here's a question from the ACT. What's the median of the list of numbers below? Okay, so why don't you go ahead and put these numbers in order, and let's all go from smallest to biggest, so we all look the same, and then find the middle value. And as you write numbers down, it's helpful to kind of cross them off the list, that way you don't miss anything. While you're doing that, on the previous question, number 18, the question mark here that I put in, I wasn't sure what that number was. And so that, what I do there is I am utilizing these numbers and plugging one of those in for the question mark each time as I guess and check. Okay, so 18, when you put these all in order, I had a 3, and then there were 5 3s, a 6, a 7, a 9, 11, and 12. Well, the median must be 6, right? Because there's 4 numbers to the left and 4 numbers to the right. Now, if there were 2 numbers, let's say there were 2 numbers in the middle, you'd average them up. That's not too bad. That's kind of like, okay, median, great. Well, here's how ACT asks it. This is number 44, so it's later in the test. Which interval contains the median? Well, if I add up all these responses, there's a total of 11 responses. So if I'm thinking, what would be the middle number if I've got 11 numbers? Well, I could think that there's 5 numbers and then the middle one and then 5 more numbers, right? This would be our median. So the median must be the 6th number in the list. So if I start counting down here, 1, 2, that's 3, right? Add 2 more, that's 5. Ah, the 6th number of the list is right in here. And if I went the other way, here's 3. And if I add these 3, oh, 6 again. So 61 to 70, that's where the median lies. Not too bad. Again, it's a little awkward because we're not used to seeing a question like that, but not too awful. And then to finish off our statistics kind of questions here, let's turn the page. And now what ACT does is they really like to put all the questions kind of together. So we're going to do these ones. Now notice for the most part, they're towards the end of the test, like 45, 52, 51, 14. Okay, well, maybe that one's easier. Doubt it, but you know, there's always a couple stinkers in there. So let's look at 45. Kind of interesting. They're asking for 45, what is the product? So product means to multiply, right? What's the product of the mean and the median of the first 6 prime numbers? And they even tell us, by the way, 2 is the first prime number. Now remember, a prime number is a number that's only divisible by 1 and itself. So if I start writing them out, 2 is a prime number. The next one is 3. 4 is not a prime number because 2 divides into that, but 5 is. 6 is not a prime number because both 2 and 3 divide into that, but 7's a prime. 8 is not prime. 9 is not. 10 isn't, but 11 is. 12's not prime, but 13 is. There's our first 6 prime numbers. Now, when I go to find the median, it's the middle, right? Which would be right here. So I take the numbers on either side, add them up and divide by 2. So I would do 5 plus 7 divided by 2, which I think if we just look at it, we know that between a 5 and a 7 is a 6, right? Now, the mean means to add them all up and divide by the total, right? So when I go to find the mean, I would add up all these numbers. And divide by 6, right? Because there's 6 numbers. Well, when I add these numbers up, I get 41. And I'm going to leave it as 41 over 6. And here's why. Well, I'm finding the product, right, of the median and the mean. Well, when I multiply these numbers, wouldn't the 6's cancel and we get 41? You could also use your calculator to get a decimal of this, but the key would be don't round anything, right? So kind of weird that they're asking for the product of the mean and the median, but you know, is what it is. Okay, 52, really challenging question here. They tell us the mean of 5 numbers is 52. So we've got 5 numbers here. So I'm gonna make a list of 5 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know that the mean, in other words, when I add up all those numbers and divide by 5, I've got to get 52, right? Because they tell us the mean is 52. Now, they are pretty nice to us. They tell us the median of these 5 integers is an 82. So I know that the median has to be 82, and I'll make sure that's dead set in the middle. And here's the weird part. They tell us 3 of the numbers are these. Well, 0 and 12 have to go on this side because this is the median, right? So that's the middle value. Numbers to the left are smaller. 82 is, well, we've already got the 82 here, right? So that's really not too bad. They kind of told us the 82 twice. Weird. Which of the following could be, now it says could be one of the other integers. So I'm not sure what these are. I'm going to call that A and that B. But if I do the math on this, if I add those numbers at the top there, I'm going to have 94 plus A plus B, and that's got to equal 260, right? Because if I multiply both sides by 5 to get rid of this, we have that. And then I'm like, okay, A plus B has got to equal 166. So I got to find 2 numbers that when I add them up, I'll get 166. Now we can, if we glance at the answers here, first off, we know A and B have to be at least 82, right? So we know right off the bat, F and G are not correct. Well, I'm going to go ahead and try out 105. I'm going to let A equal, I'll use this in red. I'm going to let A equal 105. Well, if A is 105, then B would have to equal 61. And there's no way that B could be a 61. It's got to be bigger than 82. So we know, nope, that's not it. What if A were equal to 86? Well, if A is equal to 86, then B has to equal 80. And again, you're like, no, got to be bigger than 82. So that can't be it. Well, what if A is equal to 84? Well, if A is equal to 84, again, we know that those two numbers have to add up to be 166. Well, that means that B equals 82. Yes, that's it. Well, I guess they weren't stuttering when they said the three numbers were 0, 12, and 82. Wasn't quite sure that one of those was an 82 there. That's a tough question, right? Now that's like number 52. So like those last 10, those are like the really, really, really challenging questions. Let's do two more, and then we're going to do some timing on the ACT. Let's look at 14 here. By the way, the number 14 appeared on the April test, which is kind of ironic, that the average of 5 test scores is the same as the median. So the average is the same as the median. And they're telling us that the sum of the 5 scores is 420. That's just too funny. So I'm going to put down that. I'm going to say A plus B plus C plus D plus E. Here's 5 numbers. We know that that sum is going to be 420. Now we're told that the average is the same as the median. Well, if I go ahead and find the mean, isn't that going to be 420 divided by the 5 numbers? And that means that's equal to 84. Well, if the median is the median's going to be the same number, right? So this 84 must be the middle value. And I think if I put these numbers in order, the letter C is 84. So I would have A plus B plus 84 plus D plus E has got to equal 420. Well, the question says, what is the sum of the 4 scores that are not the median? Well, if I take away 84 from both sides, I'm going to get letter H, 336. So this interplay of the two different stat questions, kind of interesting. Let's do one more, this number 51. This one's not bad. It's a lot, of all the ones on here, I think 51 is the easiest. You just gotta be careful not to fall for the halfway answer. Now they give us a list of numbers here. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers. So I'm gonna put 6 numbers in the list. Now we're told that the median of 25. So the middle number here, which is not in existence, would be a 25. So the numbers to the left are smaller, numbers to the right are bigger. Well, I got to put these numbers in order, right? Now, here's the first time they tell us about a mode. It's one of the few times I've seen mode appear on the ACT test. Mode means what happens the most often. So 15 happens the most. So, but notice 15 only happens once in this list. So I think it's safe to assume that maybe letter Y is a 15 also. It could be X, but it doesn't really matter. But I know at least one of those has to be a 15. Now that means that we have 2 15s in our list, right? So whatever goes here has got to be between 15 and 25. I don't see anything between 15 and 25. Now it could be an X, but yeah, let's put the X down there. Now the other numbers would have to be 30, 35, and 41. So I think, this problem's not bad, but I think what makes it difficult is we're not asking people to put numbers in a list like that. So here we go. Now we are told to find the mean of the list, right? The mean. Well, before we do that, we got to figure out what X is. these two numbers are in the middle, right? So I know that when I add them up and divide by 2, we better get 25 because 25 is the median. That means x equals 20. But be careful, okay, because notice 20 is in the list. We're not asked for that. We're asked to find the mean of it. X is a 20. So 15 plus 15 plus 20 plus 30 plus 35 plus 41, all divided by 6. And that gives us an answer of 26. Okay, so these were the stat questions. We're going to see a couple stat questions today in the ACT packet. So if you want to put those away and take your ACT packet and turn to page 14. Page 14. This is where it starts. And again, I want to do some timing here. So we're going to do, again, the way the test works is there's 60 questions, right? So I always like having students try to get through the first 20 questions in about 15 minutes. And then the next 20 questions in about 20 minutes, right? That's like, you know, a minute a question here. That's the normal pace. And then the last 20 questions in 25 minutes. That way we can, if we can go the first 20 questions a little bit faster, that'll save time to get to those much more difficult questions. Now, if your goal is to get a 21, this is something that you shouldn't do. You should do a minute a question. If your goal is trying to get higher than a 21, well, then this needs to be the technique, right? Everyone's got different goals of what their objective is. But if you can get used to doing the first 20 questions in 15 minutes, now that means don't get a lot wrong though, right? Don't go so fast you're getting questions wrong. And then there is something else to talk about. You know how the answers are either A, B, C, D, or E, or they are F, G, H, J, K. And I was kind of curious which letters happen the most. Like I've always been told like, hey, the letter C happens the most, right? You may have heard this too. Well, it turns out every single answer happens between 10 and 11 times. It is totally spaced out equally. There's not one letter that occurs more often than the other. And I know this because I went ahead and went through like, the last 10 or 11 ACTs for fun and kind of did some statistics on the answer choices. Turns out each one happens the most. Now, I'm not saying this is a test strategy, like when you're stuck, count how many times the letter A happened. What I'm saying is they all happen the same amount of time. So there you go. All right. So we're going to do 15 minutes on this. I'm going to time you. And it's numbers 1 through 20. Go ahead and get started.
What page are we on?
Page 14. Page 14. Forgot that. And I'm going to subtract out 65 and subtract 45 from that and wind up with 70. That's what our answer would be, 70 degrees. This one's kind of a tough one to estimate because I know I talked about things being drawn to scale. These angles are all so close together, it'd be really tough to estimate it. Least common denominator. So you got to go back to like 7th grade, right? That's when I was helping my daughter with this stuff. And it's been a while, I get it. What we want to do is I take these fractions and I got to break up the 35 into a bunch of numbers that when you multiply them, you get 35, right? Well, I think 7 times 5 is 35. Now, when you have a 28, you might say 7 times 4 is 28. But we really should use 7 times 2 times 2, right? We should try to stick with prime numbers down here. And then this denominator is an 8. And I know you could think of it being like 2 times 4 is 8, but we really should make it be 2 times 2 times 2. Now, to figure out the least common denominator, all these numbers have to be together. So we need a 7, which I have. We need a 5, which I have. Now I look over here, I need a 7. Already got a 7. We need 2 2s. So I put 2 2s in. Then I come over here and I'm like, ooh, I need 3 2s. So I've got 1 2. I need a third 2. When I multiply those up, I get letter B, 280. It's been a while since you've added, fractions and such, but be careful. Number 8 is checking on your quadratic ability. They're telling us that these two numbers are solutions. What could it have come from? Well, we need to remember the relationship between a solution and a factor. If the solution is 5, it must have come from the equation x minus 5 equals 0. Because if I solve this equation, I'd add 5 to both sides, right? And get x equals 5. So we need an x minus 5 in the problem. Well, that's got it. G does not have an x minus 5. Neither does H. Neither does J. And neither does K. So just by doing this little bit, we could eliminate all the other choices. But I should kind of keep on teaching here. The other solution is -2. Well, if we have x is equal to -2, it must have come from the equation x plus 2 equals 0. Because when you solve that, you get -2 on both sides and get x minus 2. So we need an x plus 2 in there. And sure enough, letter F does have the x plus 2 as well. So there's a nice relationship between those two pieces that you need to be aware of. Number 9 is a ratio question, right? We're told these pieces are in a ratio of 3 to 5 to 7. So I kind of drew a line segment and said the length of that line segment is 60. Now I'm not sure what the ratio is. Like I could start guessing and say, well, we could have 30, 50, and 70, but those definitely don't add up to be 60, do they? They're way too big. And so you could guess and check some answers, which is fine. Or do it like this. I'm not sure what those are. Let's put X's there. When I add up all 3 of those, it should equal 60, which means that X equals 4. Be careful, there's a halfway answer there. The question asks, what's the longest piece? Well, that should be the 7x, right? The longest piece. Well, if X is 4, 7 times 4, 28. Hey, Mr. Williams, let me know when I'm over time, okay? Because I think I'm running long. Question number 10. We're told Zoe uses her calculator to figure something out. And I just made a table of the input n. Like when she typed in a 9, the output was a 6. When she typed in a 12, the output was 8. And I'm looking at all these choices here. Well, if I think about trying to find the rate of change, the slope, isn't it y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? The change in y over the change in x. Well, this is x and this is kind of like y. Well, the change in y is 2 and the change in x is 3, so 2/3. I'm looking, letter F is the only one with a rate of change of 2/3. Okay, 11. We want to find the midpoint between these 2 points. So sometimes I draw a picture to kind of help me see it better. Some of you might not need to do that, but for me, it's kind of helpful to see what's going on. So I know that the midpoint is somewhere in between the 2 and the 8 for the x's, and I can't get rid of any x's. The y's are somewhere between a 5 and 11. Can't get rid of anything there. Well, the midpoint means what's in the middle, right? Well, what's in the middle between 2 and 8? Think about finding the median, right? Add them up and divide by 2. 2 plus 8 divided by 2. 2 plus 8 is 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So the x value must be 5. Lets me get rid of everything except for B and C, because B and C both have an x value of 5. Well, what's between a 5 and an 11? Well, add them up and divide by 2. We get 8. So the answer must be letter C. Question number 12 is asking to find the volume. So I kind of drew a box with the length, width, and height. We have to know the formula of a box, right? Length times width times height. So 1/9 times 1 times 1 is letter F, 1/9. Okay, 13 is dealing with polynomials again. And so we're subtracting here. So make sure to distribute that negative sign. And that's what I have here, right? This becomes a positive x squared. That becomes a negative 6x. That becomes a negative 7. When we combine like terms, we wind up with this, right? Put together the x squareds. 3x squared plus x squared is 4x squared. That gets rid of a and b because those are not 4x squareds. And similarly, all the way on down the line. Okay, 14 is like a geometry question, which you guys spend some time doing with truth tables, kind of a pain in the neck. They're saying when a equals 22. Okay. Now they're saying let E represent the sentence A is even. So I wrote the letter E and said, okay, A is when this is even. Well, is 22 an even number? Yep, it's true. E is going to be true. And then it says, let P represent the sentence A is prime. So here's P. A is prime. Is the number 22 prime? I don't think so because 2 and 11 both divide into it, right? So E is true and P is false. So that's what my answer is.
So why isn't it G? Just wondering.
Okay, G, if E is true. So if, okay, so this is the deal. This says if E is true, then P is false. So that means that E implies. Well, here, E is true, right? Well, E was true, but P was not true, right? This says if E is true, then P must be true. Well, no, not necessarily. E is true, P is false. Doesn't hold up. So you got to be careful of that word then. 15, kind of funny story. I grade when you guys when you're all sophomores and juniors, you kind of do like this practice ACT test in the fall and October. We didn't do it this year because of COVID, but we've done it for the last 5-6 years. I'm the one that scores those for the district and kind of puts together results for everyone. Number 15, we had a question like this last year. It was the most commonly missed question. 70% of the people taking it thought the answer was B. Now, we should remember, absolute values make things positive, right? So as soon as we see absolute values, you better cross off A and B because it cannot be those. I think what people did was they worked it all out, got -10, and they forgot to take the absolute value. It's a stressful test. Always, always glance at the answers, eliminate things that are not true. The absolute value of things have to be positive, so it cannot be A or B. That way you don't fall for the answer. But this was on all the tests, that was the most commonly missed question by every single person in Olathe. It was crazy. 16, they're asking for the slope. So we want to think about that equation y equals mx plus b. So I just went ahead and solved for y. Like I subtracted 11x from both sides. That's how this is a -11x. And then I divided everything by 6. And I just stopped there. I didn't bother simplifying it. The question says, what's the slope? -11/6. There are some formulas to memorize with that, but I'm not a big formula guy. 17, probably never seen one like this, where you have to evaluate a function in terms of these 3 variables. Well, x is a 2, y is a 4, and z is a -3. So I just put them in for the x, y, and the z's. I have this. Now, I kind of showed all the math as I went, but you do get to use your calculator, right? Why not just type it in your calculator and get it? Because I have a feeling some people would say -3 to the second power is -9. It's really +9, right? Because it's -3 times -3. So be careful on these. When you type this into the calculator, use parentheses. You're not going to make any mistake, and the calculator knows to multiply. You can type it in exactly as this appears, and you'll get the right answer. 18, 19, and 20 deal with, here's a stem, and then they have 3 questions that are based on it, okay? So I never look at the stem. I go right to the question and then go back to figure out what I need. A circle graph. So a circle graph is like a pie chart, right? Illustrating 6 budget amounts. What should the measure of the central angle be for the flooring sector? Now notice flooring is $5,000, right? So if I were to make a chart out for that, I want to know, like, what angle should this be? Well, I know it's a circle, and so it's some part of 360 degrees. It's some fraction of 360 degrees. Well, what fraction of it is it? Well, I think it's $5,000 out of the total amount of the budget, right? So that's my fraction. It's 5,000 out of the 45,000. Type this in my calculator, I get a nice number of 40 degrees. Again, this is a formula you may not remember from geometry. Question 19 is asking for what's the average price per appliance. Now it's kind of distracting. They tell us your refrigerator, dishwasher, cooktop, because they're not in here. The table just has $4,000 for appliances. So I just do 4,000 divided by 5. I get A. Toughest one on this is number 20. Suppose a bar graph, right? So think of it. We got a pie graph here, and now we got a bar graph here. Was constructed using expenses. The length of the lighting should be what fraction of the cabinet? So I looked in the table, lighting was 3,000, cabinets were 9,000. So if I'm making a bar graph of that, I think the lighting should be a third of the cabinets, right? So letter H, letter H. Cool. Yeah, Mr. Williams, let me know when I need to stop, okay? Because I'm just gonna keep on talking. All right, so I would like for us all to look at number 35. And I do not want to do 35 the way we would do in math class. I want to use this estimation idea.
And Pat, I think this should probably be the last one you do.
All right, this is perfect then. All right,
Okay.
so here's a new strategy for you. Again, I said things are drawn to scale, right? They want to know what the length is of AC. Now, AC, if you could all draw a line segment there, we want to know how long that is. Well, you can't bring a, now the thing is it's a square. So I guess you could say, if you remember from geometry, 5, 5, 5 root 2 and get the right answer, but chances are you might not remember that, right? You're not able to bring in a ruler to the test, but you do have a test booklet, right? You can use that as a ruler. What I'm going to do is I know that this distance from here to here is a distance of 5, right? Because they tell me that. That is a distance of 5. So I'm going to use that to see how long this piece is. Now notice that diagonal, it's more than 5, isn't it? It's longer than 5. Well, that means it can't be B. And if I use my calculator, 2 times the square root of 5 is not bigger than 5. Now, this distance is 5, right? I think that's way less than 20, don't you? And it's way less than 25. So use stuff as a ruler and it will help you get to the right answer. Now, there's lots of other great stuff in here. Definitely keep working them, right?